You most likely know today's guests as Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank or as chairman of OLeary Ventures. In the building today is none other than Kevin OLeary. Kevin, how has Fargo been treating you?
I love Fargo. It's not my first journey here by any means. My discovery of Fargo in North Dakota started years ago, actually on Shark Tank. Very famous deal in Shark Tank history, PRX Performance. One of the most phenomenal successes we've ever had. American story of repatriating manufacturing. I mean, just remarkable. And it got a lot of attention, and we came back years later and shot an update ice fishing here in Fargo, which was very well received because it was a lot of fun. And that was sort of the beginning of the journey that brings me back here today to do something, a much broader mandate. We're going to be investing a lot of capital here.
So what did you catch when you were ice fishing?
You're only allowed to take so many. And, you know, I didn't know that. I didn't know that all these really hard rules. There's some very primordial fish fishing down there. Like, it's very strange stuff. But I learned a lot. It's the first time I've ever done it. I don't really think it's about fishing. I think it's about partying. That's what I think. That's what I came back with. I don't remember anything about the fishing. I just remember the party.
I don't think you're wrong about that. I can't say I've ever been ice fishing myself, but I have to imagine that that's kind of the...
It's a certain kind of tailgating that is just out of this world. I mean, you have to trek across the ice with the wind howling, and once you get in the hut, it's a party.
And so I've got a lot that I want to cover with you today. I got to start things off right off the bat with this, though. You have been put in charge of the Wonder Fund here in North Dakota. It's a $45 million fund to grow small businesses in the state. Your name has recently come up with regard to the collapses of FTX and Silicon Valley Bank. And it's a question that readers and listeners have posed to us, and I will ask on their behalf, why should we trust you here in North Dakota to be in charge of this fund?
It's a very fair question, and let's go through that pecking order. FTX is an alleged fraud, and so when you're an investor, and remember FTX, if you looked at the cap table of that company, it was the who's who of private equity, the largest firms in the world, and I was just one investor in it. But when we make these investments, and I think you should understand the stats, since the 50s, you put out 10 deals, and make no mistake about it, FTX was a startup, a very large one, but it was a nascent business. It was a classic startup. We put out 10 deals, 8 fail within 3 years, and 2 are 1,000x on your money. So the returns are extraordinary. The risk is really high. Now, usually alleged fraud is not the reason they fail. They fail because they missed the market, or they have incompetent management, or they missed executional skills, or they didn't pivot when the market changed. There's a lot of reasons businesses fail. And these nascent startups, which FTX was, it's just another deal that failed. Now, the reason for why it failed made international news, and it's in a nascent sector, crypto, which doesn't even have regulation yet, so it was extremely volatile. Let me tell you a story about that deal that everybody should understand. There were 2 investments I made. I made an investment in FTX International, real money. I bought equity in it. I insisted that I be given access to that because when I become a paid spokesperson for a company, I need to eat the cooking, which means I need to own a piece of the company. I need to align myself with the shareholders that service the customers. And at the same time, the hottest deal in the country in 2000 at that time, 2021, I think February, was the issuance of shares in FTX US. It was highly assumed that because Sam Bankman-Fried's parents were compliance lawyers, that they would have the first opportunity to be a regulated exchange in the US, and every single financial institution wanted a piece of that deal. It was the hottest private equity deal in America. When I got my allocation and became public, every institution that I'd done business with for decades prior called me and said, you need to give us a piece of your allocation. I said, no, this is a startup. And they thought I was using that as an excuse. But I knew it was nascent. I said, the only capital going into the equity will be my personal money. I will not take any other investors into this deal. I lost $18 million on FTX, every cent of it mine. There are no investors with me beside it. I did that because I am a fiduciary. I didn't want to take the risk. When I invest other people's money, it's a higher standard. I can't take that kind of risk. Now, that's one answer. The Silicon Valley Bank, I'm not an investor in. I had no money in. I'm a vocal critic of what I call idiot management. That bank was run by idiots, and they deserve everything coming to them. They ran it like a hedge fund. They took huge bets with depositors' money, and now they're asking everybody, including every citizen here in North Dakota, to pay for their mistake. You should say no. You look at your banking system here, it's run responsibly, very, very well. In fact, I met with your management yesterday at North Dakota State Bank. You are the shining example of how you should do regional banking. They are not. I am not interested in bailing out that bank personally or federally or guaranteeing any more idiot banks like that. They should fail. It's important that they do fail. In our system, it's important to cull the idiot management. And that's what happened there. That's what's going to happen in First Federated, and it's and the same in Signature Bank.
So
First Republic. Let's get the names right. That's a nothing burger bank too. You never heard of it 2 weeks ago. I didn't even know it existed. And now it's failing? Who cares? Let it go to zero.
You're obviously quite enamored with doing business here in North Dakota. Recently, you went on CNN and you said that New Jersey, Massachusetts, New York, and California are uninvestable. You told Fox Business that you thought the Bank of North Dakota was a model for success, and you just said so here. What draws you to North Dakota from a business perspective?
Policy, policy, policy. I don't get into politics. I get into policy. My story is very simple. I do business and can do business anywhere I want. What's changed in our economy in the last 36 months that makes North Dakota an incredible opportunity for investors like me is, if I look at my portfolio today of over 50 companies, 40% of the staff are never coming back to the office. So it doesn't matter where I put the HQ anymore. I can put it anywhere I want. I don't have to put it with AOC. I don't have to put it with Elizabeth Warren. I don't have to have a situation where I'm punished for success. Elizabeth Warren wants to raise my personal taxes if I'm successful. Why would I do that? I just take the money out of Massachusetts, move it here, where you've got a governor, you've got a state that has policy and competitive taxes. What's wrong with that? I mean, it's a very simple economic decision. Now, nobody knows the story of North Dakota. I'm going to be one person telling it. Why wouldn't I? Because I want to do business here. And I can't tell you how many calls I've had since we announced this Wonder Fund. It's a very small world, private equity. There's some very large firms in it. I know them all. It's a very small world of sovereign wealth. I know them all because I index for them. They're all calling me up saying, where's North Dakota? Why are you putting money there? What's the story? This is the beginning of your time because you have the right policy. You've got a change in the economy through digitization. You got ag, you have ag tech, you got energy, you got nat gas, you've got biotech, you got pharma, you've got Microsoft's second largest campus. I just viewed it today. It's the size of a city. Nobody knows you have this stuff. You need to tell your story.
And so when the opportunity came about to run the Wonder Fund, what was kind of your first thought? Take us through that process and how it all came to be.
It's a very specific mandate. It's capital granted through Treasury to your state. There's an RFP process that was competitive, and we competed for it, and we won. We think we have a pretty good track record in doing exactly this kind of investing. But my thought on this fund is maybe a little different than other managers would have taken. Every time I bring a deal, I want to bring a partner. I want to bring money from outside the state. In the land trust deal, we brought in the Wilkes family. That is a massive private equity entity with millions of acres of their own land that fit the mandate of what the land trust is. We want to bring those kinds of partners. Now, as soon as we did that deal with them and announced it, they said, what else can we do in North Dakota together? Exactly. What else can we do? The whole idea of introducing the state to outside capital is what this fund is all about. It's almost like it's like a banner. It says, look, we're starting with this and we're going to make it much bigger. Because when you find winning companies like Land Trust, you have to fund them for the next 5-7 years. We have to raise more capital.
And you mentioned Land Trust. Land Trust is the first recipient of funding from the Wonder Fund with $1.25 million, a promise to build a base of operations here in Fargo. What boxes did Land Trust check for you?
Good management, growing a moat, being able to attract a strategic investor beside it that makes it harder for competitors later. Because the way the Land Trust shared access works is, do you have the El Supremo land that people want to hunt or fish on or go hiking on or whatever it is they want to use it for over a weekend or a week or whatever they want? You need to get access to that. And with the Wilkes at your side, they own a lot of land. and they're well known in this state, and they're great partners. So my feeling was, and we talked with them before we closed it, said, let's get together on this one, guys, because we need to get a moat around this business. It's a good idea. We want to fight off competitors, and we want to be the leader in the space. And I think we've done that.
Tell me a little bit about the relationship that you have with Governor Doug Burgum. How did you two first meet, and what is the working relationship like?
Well, we're of the same generation. We came up in the same time. We were fortunate to be successful in the same industry, software. I have a lot of respect. You know, my thing about politicians is very simple. If you've never made payroll, you shouldn't be allowed to be a politician. Now, that may sound aggressive, but you need to understand the core essence of what your mandate is. You are the trustee of your state's wealth and welfare. I mean, you have to understand business. That guy gets it. I mean, talk about payroll. This guy built a lot. He's very, very successful. So when he and I talk about the challenges of policy versus business, he gets it. Your legislature gets it. Your banking system gets it. Because a lot of these people came out of business. They've made payroll sometime in their life. And it's very hard for me to respect a politician that doesn't understand how hard that is. You run a business, you go through hell. You understand how difficult it is, and it's a law. You've got to make payroll. You have to make payroll. You can't believe how you have to contort yourself to do that. If you can do that, you can be a politician.
So overall, it's safe to say you are a pretty big fan of the job that Governor Burgum is doing here in North Dakota to make it a business-friendly environment?
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole idea is I've had some very bad experiences in states that don't have stable policy or competitive taxes. I'm tired of that. I've become a very vocal critic of that. And my attitude is, you took my money, you made me some promises about permits and policy, you lied to me. I'm going to tell that story because it's the truth. If you don't like it, you can eat it. And that's just the way it is, because I think you have to hold these kinds of policymakers accountable. I have a lot of respect for Elizabeth Warren. I don't like any of her policy. She's a very successful politician. I have a lot of respect for the brand AOC has built. I would never put a dime into her state. And nor with anybody else, if you've noticed. All those jobs have left because of her policy. She should eat that. She should own it. And she should be accountable to her people for it. And they should understand the damage that these policies are doing. And I'm just one vocal critic. And I'm very passionate about it because this is now the time of the competition between states. This is a go-to state. Those are no-go states. And I'm just one person saying that. And I'm going to keep my megaphone on full volume because we need to have people understand how much damage their politicians do when they've never made payroll. You shouldn't be allowed to give policy to any business in your state if you've never made payroll.
I feel like you're teeing me up right now because this leads perfectly into the next question that I wanted to ask you. This is a topic that comes up a lot while I'm doing my reporting. We cover both Fargo here in North Dakota and Moorhead over in Minnesota. And one of the topics that comes up a lot is the differences between the environment in North Dakota and the environment in Minnesota. I've even had business owners tell me that they have more Bismarck and St. Paul problems than they do Fargo and Moorhead problems. Where is Minnesota on your list of go states and no-go states?
Not investable, no-go state. Let me rest my case, okay? Forget what I say. Let's look at the numbers. Let's talk about your neighbor city just across the river right here in Fargo. 50 years ago, you both had the same population. Maybe less, 25 years ago. Look at it today, 25 years later. What's the difference? Only one thing. Policy. They have no-go policy. They have unstable policy. They have unstable everything, unstable energy policy. You don't. People aren't stupid. They just moved across the river to here, and you have a thriving city. Their town looks like Cuba. Not my fault. Their fault. Policy. I'm just one person making that observation saying the numbers don't lie. If they don't get their act together, it'll just keep getting worse. And these policies they're putting in place around energy, let's remind them over there that 2/3 of their energy comes from here, and they want to make that energy source illegal. they're going to freeze in the dark. They have no plan to replace it. I mean, I'm just one person pointing that out. I would never headquarter a business there because the policy is unstable. I'm just one voice, but it's so obvious to me when I look at these two sister towns, yards away from each other, the darkness and the abyss of their policy, the sunshine and the optimism you have here, and this remarkable place that's growing that everybody wants to come to, live here, and put capital to work. I rest my case, Your Honor. That's it.
Tell me about some of the investments that you've made in Fargo. PRX Performance is the big one. BitZero is also another one here in North Dakota. How are your personal investments in North Dakota doing?
So BitZero is an interesting story. That's the project that started in upstate New York that I got absolutely shafted on. And I just can't believe what happened to us there. We moved that project to Norway, where it's wildly successful because they wanted it and they have better policy and they have that behind the meter electricity we needed to build that data center. Okay, the pyramid. That property has been around since the 70s. That could be the world's most secure data center, one of the largest on earth. That's the vision I have for it. And luckily, your governor sees it that way too. Now, my job is to go raise $600 million. That was long before we got this Wonder Fund mandate. That project is way outside the scope of Wonder Fund. So this is where I have to bring sovereign wealth into play. Ever since we announced the Wonder Fund, the side derivative I didn't see coming was we started getting calls from these sovereign wealth funds saying, what's the story in North Dakota? What's the tax? What's the policy? I'm going to take the commissioner, Josh, with me. We're going to do a tour of the Middle East to meet these funds, meet these people, introduce the state to them and say, this is what's available in infrastructure building and build outs, because these funds are looking for money that they can put to work for 20, 25 years. They want to pencil out deals at 9 to 11, 12, 13, 14%. Data centers fit that, but they're really, really expensive. They need power. They need clean energy because the big leaseholders are the Microsofts, the Adobes, Amazon, the IRS, the CIA. You want those clients, but they have very, very strict mandates in terms of what they want for energy protocol. And so we have to figure that out. If we can get low-cost energy where we've removed the carbon, which is the promise of this state, now you're talking. So the real big opportunity is to build these pipelines, remove this carbon, make this energy 95% carbon-free. And people tell me, oh, we're not going to need carbon in 10 years or, any carbon fuels. That's ridiculous. We're going to need these fuels for 50, even 100 years. We don't know yet. The point is we don't have replacements yet that work, that are economic. So let's plan ahead and make this state the shining example of how you can do this stuff. It takes capital, a lot of capital. So I'm just one person that's going to hit the road and say, I think I found a place we can put real money to work, because that's what I do for a living. Now, they'll come and make their own decisions, and I think there's great, Doug Burgum is a great spokesperson for this. Your senators, your legislature, they're smart, pragmatic. Your state bank's unique. It's the only one like it in the country. Started in 1919. Before they put $1 billion to work here, they're going to come here and check it out. They're probably going to stay here at the Jasper Hotel, by the way. It's going to happen. I mean, there's no way they're putting that much money in the ground without checking this place out. My job is to go get them to come. We don't have to bring them here in February. They can come in July too,
What do you think of being here in March?
I like it, although I got to tell you guys, I've been here a lot in March over the years. I've never seen snow this late. I mean, this is like crazy chicken stuff, because when we were landing here, I was seeing drifts 20 feet high. I said, wait a second, this is March. Like, the snow's late this year, is it not?
It feels that way to me, and it's snowing tomorrow, so.
Yeah, not happy about that.
I kind of want to change gears here for a second, talking about some of the work that Governor Burgum is doing. Governor Burgum has gone out quite a lot and said that the workforce issues in North Dakota are, and I believe I am quoting him here, the #1 barrier to economic growth in North Dakota. What would you advise that the state should do on that topic?
Well, there's a competition. We talked about it earlier. What I would do right now in the state, and you can afford to do it, is get state taxes to 0 tomorrow morning. Because if you're 27 years old and you're graduating, you're starting a family, and your average salary is maybe $65,000, you check the box on state tax. You don't want to live in New York City. You don't want to live in San Francisco. San Francisco, we can't live in. It's a war zone now. I don't know what happened to that place, but people are moving out of places like that because the state taxes are punitive. So, your proposal, which I don't think is going to get voted in, I don't know, 1.5%. 1.5% is in the same neighborhood as zero. So why don't you just make it zero and get competitive with all the states that are going to zero? Florida being a shining example of what works. I think North Dakota should have zero state tax. You have so much wealth from energy. It's been so successful. You can afford to reallocate something else to get to that 600 you're going to miss. That would help all investors, including me, attract young talent. They care about state taxes, and you want to advertise a zero on that box. So I'm hoping that somehow, and I think that a lot of members of the legislature understand the marketing aspect of zero state tax. It's beyond just the numbers. It's the emotional aspect about being free of the tithe of the state. It's a form of freedom, and I think I'd love to see it as part of the story of North Dakota.
So what's next for the Wonder Fund here in 2023? What can we expect to see this year and moving forward?
I need more deals. I need more deal flow. Remember, I have to put it to work in North Dakota. It has to be 100% North Dakota or a business that's moving here and moving their headquarters. So I'm very selective on what we're going to put our money into. I want this fund to be wildly successful. I need great execution skills at the CEO levels. I'm seeing lots of good companies, but I'm highly selective. So I just want more of the same. And so my job is to come and promote it. So I want everybody to know they can go to OLearyVentures.com, click on the North Dakota mandate, the Wonder Fund mandate, upload their deck. I've got a huge team. We will be announcing hopefully it's not done yet, but an office here with a highly talented team that is from here, that has worked. I'll leave it for the announcement. I think you'll be impressed. You'll be impressed. I mean, I want to build a bigger nexus here, not just for the Wonder Fund. I think I can attract more money here and operate in this region in other states, because the dialogue about investing out, since 1954, 95% of capital and venture was only in Massachusetts and California. Both states are uninvestable. So everybody's kind of, looking around for what is the next best thing. And now we're talking about states that give you diversity of sectoral diversity, like ag, like land, like all kinds of energy-based ideas. Well, let's run it out of here. Like, why not? You got a lot of tech people here. This Microsoft campus is loaded with people that have tremendous tech skills, and you can use them as the backbone of what you're building.
So why you? Why Kevin OLeary? Why are you the person for this job?
Life is serendipitous. You just don't know what's going to happen. And, just the whole PRX journey, and then what happened on Shark Tank with North Dakota, and then, meeting Josh in the commissioner's office, my team really liking the idea, because you can't do this. I don't do this myself. I have to bring talent. I mean, yes, I take advantage of the fact that people know me and I can tell the story of North Dakota, but I need real executional skills. We have to analyze deals. We have to put money to work. We have to work with Treasury. We've got to work with your board at the commissioner's level. We've got to work with legislature. This takes talent. And so if we're going to build this up, it's because we want to. And we don't see any roadblocks right now. We don't have AOC living here. There's no Elizabeth Warren at the doorstep when you land in Fargo's airport. She's not greeting you. She's not running the catering service here. I'm far away from that stuff. And so I go to the path of least resistance with the highest probability of good outcomes, and it's not those places. And I'm willing to tell the truth about it. So I would never set this up in any of those places. And it's not about politics. It's not blue states, red states. It's policy. Your neighbors are suffering because of policy. We talked about that. The numbers show how bad it is over there. That's bad policy. So I want to avoid that. I want to go to places where it's good. And that's why I'm doing this. This is good policy. I can come out here. We can build a business. We can work internationally. And we can bring capital here because it's good policy. And the returns look good. Remember, my job is to get good returns for investors. That's not easy. You need policy on your side. You need taxes on your side. You need stable government. You need good government. You need good regulatory environments. I've fallen in love with your state bank. Like, this model's crazy good. What's going on right now, every listener should realize this, because of this idea that Yellen's putting out that everybody should guarantee everything all of the time for everybody, there's a lot of unhappy people. If you're an orange farmer in Florida, you don't want to guarantee the bank account run by idiots at the Silicon Valley Bank. You're not okay with that. Those economies have nothing to do with each other. So they're not happy. So now everybody's scrutinizing how many state by state, how many regional banks have failed. It's basically around the management of each state because the economies are different in each state. So when people scrutinize North Dakota all of a sudden in the last 48 hours, you've only had one failure of some tiny credit union. Everything else has worked. Whatever the hell you're doing here is going to become the new example of what everybody should be doing because you're managing for your own risk in your own state, for your own assets and your own people. And that should be the model. I don't want to guarantee everybody's money in states that have bad policy. That's one person who pays taxes talking, and I'm not the only one. This narrative is going to get very, very loud in the next few weeks.
So here's my last question for you. We'll set the record straight right here. Is the Wonder Fund named after Mr. Wonderful?
Yes. And the reason that is I'm a close, admirer of what Branson did with Virgin. He used the brand to enhance deal flow. The whole idea is you want everybody to know about this fund that we can possibly get it out to. We're very, very fortunate that Shark Tank is watched by 100 million people, all entrepreneurs, every year. I don't know how anybody named me Mr. Wonderful. My wife definitely does not call me that. But it's out there. It's a brand, and it means business, and it means straight shooting, honest truth business. I want that fund to have that kind of an aura branding around it, and I want people to understand we're open for business. And then, yes, I'm very much involved with it and proud to be. And I'm very proud to be a spokesperson for North Dakota because it's good business. And frankly, it is a wonder fund.
Kevin, that was about everything that I had to ask you today. I really appreciate you being here to join us here on the podcast. We'll most certainly be looking forward to what you do next here in North Dakota.
I'll be back. Thank you.